Have you ever thought about what a test is actually trying to do? It's trying to distinguish somebody who knows and understands more about a particular topic from somebody who knows less. People who develop test questions use the term discriminator to refer to a question that does indeed discriminate between a person who knows more and the person who knows less. This means, of course, that a question that everybody is going to get right has no value as a discriminator and is therefore unlikely to show up in a multiple choice test. This is why tests often ask questions about the corner cases of knowledge. Sometimes people object that the questions were not relevant to what they do every day. The point, of course, is quite simply that the thing that everybody does every day is not likely to discriminate. Almost everybody will get those answers correct. Indeed, if you see a question and it seems too obvious, it's worth considering the possibility that you're missing the point of the question. Sure, sometimes there really is an easy question, but take a moment to be sure you're not missing something. Another term question writers use is distractor. A distractor is one of the wrong answers in the list of options. If the question is to have any merit as a discriminator, the distractors must be plausible. That is, it must be possible for somebody to think they're in fact correct. Coming up with good distractors is probably the hardest part of question writing, and not all distractors will be very plausible. But the essence of it is that a distractor contains something that looks believable. It might be true in another language. It might be true with some particular special circumstance that isn't mentioned in the question. Or it might refer to a common misconception. Again, the human brain's tendency to look for patterns can trip you up here. It's quite likely that your brain will see at least one distractor and go, oh yeah, that has something to do with this, and yet be wrong. Take care and don't jump to conclusions. One tip to avoid being trapped by the recognition effect is to try to work out the right answer and then look for it in the options, instead of looking at the options that are given first. If you don't find an exact match for your answer, then think again and perhaps start to evaluate each choice in turn. Let's think for a moment about issues of confidence. Recent research in neuroscience shows that even a small amount of anxiety can have a significant detrimental effect on our ability to think clearly. If you're interested, have a look at Google's YouTube channel. Find a tech talk by a gentleman by the name of David Rock. The title of the tech talk is Your Brain at Work, and he has a book by the same title too, actually. In this, he discusses this effect and some other useful findings about how our brains work and how to get the best from them in a work environment. You need to find a way to relax as much as possible. Try not to allow your suspicion that the person writing the question made a mistake get to you. Sure, it's possible there might be an error in a question. They are written by human beings after all, but it's pretty rare. Trust the writer and, after careful thought, trust your judgment. Do everything you can to be as relaxed as possible while taking the exam. Try to put performance anxiety at arm's length. You'll perform better for it. Take up meditation if it helps you. It almost certainly will if you're the anxious type. Of course, one of the single most effective ways for many people to relax is simply to be sure that you've studied well and you know the material in question. Also, know that you probably won't, but you don't have to, get 100%. You can always claim that one of the questions is actually wrong, but know in your heart that you will pass easily and then you'll probably do even better because you're more relaxed about it. On this topic of trusting the question authors, it's perhaps worth explaining something of how the questions come to be. First, every question in the exam has been through extensive testing. You might meet people who took part in the beta test. In the beta testing process, lots of people take all the questions. Then statistical analysis is performed on the questions and the answers given. Lots of statistics are collected. How many people got the question right? Did the people who scored well overall get this one right or wrong? Some questions will be found to be good discriminators. That is, people get the question right if they got most of the questions right. Some questions might actually be negative discriminators. That is, good candidates get them wrong, while generally poor candidates get them right. Those questions, along with those with other problems, will be eliminated. Now, Here's a curiosity. During the life of a test, it's quite likely that new questions will be introduced and some old ones might be retired. The standard practice for introducing new questions is actually to add the new question directly to the test, but not count it as part of the candidate's score. Yes, you heard that right. There's unlikely to be more than one or two of these, by the way, but this is another reason not to take too long on a single question, isn't it? It might not even count. This surprising process allows new questions to be tested and proven by live candidates without changing their scores during the evaluation phase for that question. Knowing this should tell you that if a question appears to be complete nonsense, it's actually possible that it is, and maybe you won't actually lose a mark by getting it wrong anyway. So again, relax, don't worry about it. And of course, absolutely do not spend a lot of time on any question until you've answered all the easy ones. You might not be going to get a mark for it. There are many other resources that you might use to help you in your preparation for this exam. In particular, there are lots of sample questions out there on the internet. This is a good thing. It can provide lots of opportunity for practice. One resource I like, okay, I'm biased, it was created by a friend of mine and is currently run by another friend, is the website JavaRanch. That's javaranch.com. There you'll find lots of helpful discussions, including specific forum areas for Java certification. You can ask your questions and get answers from a variety of participants. Some of the folks on this forum were actually involved in creating the exam, though they might not tell you who they are so as to avoid having to fend off unreasonable requests for privileged information. But the most important practice of all is that you should write Java code. Study and understand why you get errors when you do. Try things out. Bend and break your Java code. Really get to understand it. Don't just copy solutions you find on Google, and don't just hack at your source aimlessly until the code compiles. Take the time to understand it. This will not only greatly increase your chances of an excellent score on the exam, it'll also make you a much better and much more employable programmer.